Some monsters don't hide in shadows. They sleep beside you, eat dinner across from you, laugh in family photos. We grow up believing danger announces itself, that evil looks different somehow. But the most chilling crimes in history share one terrifying truth. The warning signs were invisible until it was too late. Tonight's narrative is not just about murder. It is about secret lives quietly unfolding behind ordinary doors, about desire overpowering responsibility, about people who convinced themselves that starting over was worth any cost, even if that cost was human life. As you listen, you may find yourself asking the same unsettling question investigators return to again and again. How well can we ever truly know the people closest to us? Let's begin where many illusions begin. Inside the perfect family. Chris Watts. On a quiet suburban street in Colorado, nothing appeared unusual. Neighbors waved politely. Lawns were trimmed. Children rode bikes beneath wide summer skies. The Watts home blended perfectly into this peaceful landscape, the kind of place where terrible things were never supposed to happen. Inside lived a father described as calm and dependable. A husband who rarely raised his voice. A man coworkers considered easygoing. If you had asked anyone to predict violence, his name would never have surfaced. But perfection is often a performance. Behind the routine of family dinners and bedtime stories, something had shifted. He was having an affair. At first, it felt like excitement, a new chapter, a new identity. Messages turned into meetings. Meetings became emotional escape routes from the responsibilities waiting at home. Psychologists sometimes describe affairs not just as romantic detours, but as psychological doorways. Once someone mentally walks through them, their existing life can begin to feel smaller, heavier, negotiable. Soon, the future he imagined no longer included the family sleeping under his roof. It included freedom. And freedom, in his mind, required subtraction. One August morning in 2018, his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters vanished. The house was strangely quiet. Shoes still by the door. Blankets undisturbed. Phones left behind. He spoke to reporters with the trembling urgency expected from a desperate husband. If they're out there, just come back. But something about the plea unsettled viewers. Detectives noticed it too, emotion that seemed rehearsed rather than felt. Within days, the illusion collapsed. He confessed. First to killing his wife. Then to killing his daughters. The motive was not explosive rage. Not a momentary loss of control. It was the terrifying calm of someone trying to erase one life so another could begin. Investigators later reflected on the normalcy leading up to the crime, texts about groceries, conversations about the baby, ordinary domestic rhythms continuing right up until the moment they stopped forever. And that is what disturbs people most about this case. There was no visible monster. Just a man who decided his family had become an obstacle. When the story broke, the world asked the same question over and over. How does a father cross that line? No answer has ever fully satisfied it. But this was not the first time love, or what someone believed was love, had twisted into something lethal. Decades earlier, another parent would convince an entire nation to search for children who were never missing at all. The mother America cried with. Susan Smith. She stood before cameras, eyes glossy with tears, voice fragile enough to fracture hearts across the country. Her story was every parent's nightmare. A stranger had carjacked her vehicle while her 2 small boys were strapped into their seats. The image alone was unbearable, children crying in the dark, driven away by an unknown predator. America responded instantly. Search teams formed overnight. Highways filled with alert. Strangers prayed for children they had never met. Empathy traveled fast because the threat felt random. If it could happen to her, it could happen to anyone. But investigators noticed inconsistencies, tiny fractures beneath the surface of her account. Timelines shifted. Details blurred. Then, 9 days after the disappearance, the truth surfaced with crushing weight. There had been no carjacker. Instead, she had driven to a quiet lake, stopped the car, placed it in gear, and stepped out as it rolled forward into black water. Inside were her sons, strapped in, helpless. Imagine the stillness of that moment, headlights reflecting across ripples as the vehicle sank lower and lower until the lake closed above it. What kind of psychological distance allows someone to watch that? Prosecutors revealed a motive that stunned the public. She was involved with a man who did not want children. In her mind, they stood between her and the life she desired. The nation's grief quickly turned into disbelief, then horror. Because society rests on certain emotional certainties, one of the strongest being that a mother protects. When that certainty breaks, it shakes something deep within us. People searched not only for explanations, but for warning signs they might have missed. Was there a moment she chose this path? Or had the decision been quietly forming long before that drive to the lake? Even now, the case remains one of the most psychologically disturbing examples of maternal betrayal. Yet as shocking as it was, another case would push that boundary even further. A story so unsettling that it forced investigators to confront a possibility many once refused to consider. Sometimes the threat isn't neglect. Sometimes it is deliberate violence. Love, obsession, and a dark road. Diane Downs. It was a quiet night on a remote Oregon road, the kind of road where headlights feel isolated against endless darkness. She arrived at a hospital claiming a stranger had tried to carjack her. Her children had been shot. One would not survive. Two fought desperately for life. At first glance, she appeared composed, unusually so for a parent describing such horror. Detectives watched carefully. Trauma expresses itself in many ways, but something about her emotional stillness felt misplaced. As the investigation deepened, a motive emerged that chilled even seasoned officers. She was intensely fixated on a man who did not want children. And like the killers before her, she began to see her own as barriers. Prosecutors argued the attack was not chaos, it was calculation. Perhaps the most haunting turn came from the surviving child, whose testimony helped dismantle the fabricated story. When a child must speak against their own parent in court, the very concept of family safety fractures. The case forced the public to accept an uncomfortable truth. Danger does not always come from outside the home. Sometimes, it raises you. The pattern beneath the horror. 3 different decades. 3 different homes. 3 secret relationships. Yet the psychological threads align with eerie precision. Each killer imagined a new life waiting just beyond their current one. Each saw family not as love, but as limitation. And each made the same irreversible decision. Criminal psychologists often describe a mental shift that precedes family annihilation, a reframing in which loved ones stop being individuals and become perceived obstacles. Once that shift solidifies, morality can erode with terrifying speed. What unsettles society is not only the violence. It is the normal life that existed moments before it. School lunches packed. Future vacations discussed. Goodnight kisses given. Then suddenly silence. No laughter. No footsteps. Just absence where life used to echo. Why these stories grip us? Perhaps it is because they attack our deepest assumptions. We trust family more than strangers. We lower our guard at home. We believe love creates safety. Cases like these challenge that belief. They remind us that human beings are layered, capable of warmth and secrecy at the same time. Yet it is important to remember something else. These crimes are rare. Extraordinarily rare. Millions of families live entire lifetimes in genuine love and protection. But rarity does not lessen the chill. Because once we know such betrayals are possible, we cannot unknow it. The question that never leaves. Imagine sitting at dinner with someone you love. Conversation easy. Future open. Could you ever detect the moment their internal world began drifting somewhere you could not follow? Investigators often revisit that question, searching for behavioral clues, emotional withdrawal, double lives, sudden detachment. Sometimes those signs exist. Sometimes they don't. Which leads us to the most unsettling realization of all. Not every danger announces itself. Some dangers smile. Final reflection. Tonight, countless homes glow softly in the dark, families finishing meals, children being tucked into bed, partners discussing tomorrow. Ordinary moments. The kind we rarely question. And perhaps that is the quiet lesson threading through these tragedies. Never underestimate the value of the ordinary. Because what these families lost was not only life, but the future they assumed would always be there. 3 affairs. 3 decisions. 3 families erased. Leaving behind one haunting question that lingers long after the story's end. How well can we ever truly know the hearts of those closest to us? Which of these cases affected you the most? Was it the calculated calm, the deception, or the hidden double lives? Tell me in the comments. And if stories that stay with you long after the screen fades are the ones you can't resist. Subscribe, because the next story may be even more unforgettable.